My daughter-in-law invited us to see her new garden. I thought the invitation was strange, but we went. As soon as we arrived, I received a call from the police. "Sir, what is happening at your house?" My blood froze when I discovered it had been invaded by... Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. My name is Florence, and at 59 years old, I thought I knew my family. I thought the worst surprises were behind me. How wrong I was. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning in March. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping my second cup of coffee and working on a crossword puzzle when the phone rang. The caller ID showed Amanda's name, and I hesitated before answering. My daughter-in-law wasn't exactly known for casual calls. "Florence?" Amanda's voice was unusually bright, almost cheerful. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "No, dear, not at all." "What's on your mind?" "Well, I've been working on something special, and I'd love for you and Harold to come see it. I've created this beautiful garden in our backyard, and I'm so proud of how it turned out." I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Amanda had never shown the slightest interest in gardening. In fact, during the 5 years she'd been married to my son Marcus, she'd complained constantly about the mess that plants made and how much she hated getting dirt under her nails. "A garden?" I couldn't hide the surprise in my voice. "Oh, yes. I know it might seem out of character, but I've really found my passion for it. There are roses, tulips, a whole herb section. I even have a little fountain. I'd love to show you both this afternoon, if you're free." Harold was reading his newspaper at the other end of the table, and when I caught his attention and mouthed, "Amanda wants to show us her garden," his eyebrows shot up in the same disbelief I was feeling. "Well, that sounds lovely, dear. What time are you thinking?" "How about 2 o'clock? That's when the light hits it just perfectly." After hanging up, Harold and I sat in puzzled silence for a moment. "Since when does Amanda garden?" he asked, folding his newspaper. "Since never," I replied. "Remember last spring when Marcus asked if she wanted to help plant those bulbs? She said she'd rather scrub toilets." Harold chuckled, but I could see the same confusion in his eyes that I was feeling. Still, she was family, and if Amanda was making an effort to share something with us, we should support it. Maybe this was her way of trying to bridge the distance that had grown between us over the years. The drive to Marcus and Amanda's house took 25 minutes through our suburban neighborhood. They lived in a nice development, nothing too fancy, but comfortable. Marcus worked as a financial advisor, and Amanda had a part-time job at a boutique downtown, though she'd been calling in sick a lot lately. We pulled into their driveway at exactly 2 o'clock. Amanda was waiting for us on the front porch, wearing a flowy sundress and a wide-brimmed hat that made her look like she was auditioning for a gardening magazine. Her smile seemed forced, but I pushed that thought away, determined to be supportive. "Florence, Harold, I'm so excited you could make it," she gushed, practically bouncing down the porch steps to greet us. Marcus appeared in the doorway behind her, offering a wave but staying put. That struck me as odd, too. Usually our son would come out to hug us, ask about our drive, make small talk. Today, he seemed content to observe from a distance. "Come on, the garden is around back," Amanda said, linking her arm through mine in a gesture that felt uncomfortably intimate. We'd never been particularly close. As we walked around the side of the house, Amanda chattered nonstop about soil types and watering schedules, using terminology that sounded like she'd memorized it from a book the night before. Harold and I exchanged glances, but we played along. The backyard was indeed transformed. Where there had once been a simple lawn with a few shrubs, there was now an elaborate garden with defined sections, stone pathways, and yes, a small fountain bubbling in the center. It was beautiful, I had to admit, but something about it felt off. Everything looked too perfect, too new, like it had been installed by professionals and staged for a photo shoot. "This is incredible, Amanda," Harold said, and his admiration seemed genuine. "You must have put in a lot of work." "Oh, you have no idea," Amanda replied, but there was something sharp in her tone that made me look at her more closely. "It's amazing what you can accomplish when you really put your mind to something." We spent about 15 minutes walking through the garden while Amanda pointed out different plants and explained her vision for each section. I noticed that some of the flowers still had their nursery tags attached, and the mulch was so fresh it hadn't even started to settle. This garden hadn't been lovingly tended over months. It had been installed recently, possibly within the last week. I was bending down to smell a rose when my phone rang. The ringtone cut through Amanda's monologue about companion planting, and I fumbled in my purse to find it. "I'm so sorry," I said, glancing at the screen. It was a number I didn't recognize with a local area code. "I should probably take this." "Of course, go ahead," Amanda said, but I caught a quick look between her and Marcus, who had finally joined us in the garden. "Hello? Is this Florence Mitchell?" The voice was official, serious. "Yes, this is she. Ma'am, this is Officer Rodriguez with the county police. We're currently at your residence on Maple Drive, and I need to ask you a question. What's happening at your house right now?" My blood went cold. "What do you mean? My husband and I aren't home. We're visiting family." "Ma'am, we received a call from your neighbor about suspicious activity. It appears someone has broken into your home. Can you tell me who might have access to your house?" The phone nearly slipped from my trembling hands. "Broken in? Are you sure? We have good locks, and the security system should have—" "The security system was disabled, ma'am, and the lock shows no signs of forced entry. Do you know anyone who might have a key?" I looked up to find Amanda, Marcus, and Harold all staring at me. Amanda's face had gone pale, and Marcus looked like he was about to be sick. Yes, my son has a spare key, for emergencies, but he's right here with me." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come home as soon as possible. We have the scene secured, but you'll need to tell us what's missing." My legs felt weak. Harold was immediately at my side, taking the phone from my shaking hands. "Officer, this is Harold Mitchell, Florence's husband. Can you tell us exactly what happened?" As Harold spoke with the police, I found myself staring at Amanda and Marcus. Amanda's earlier enthusiasm had completely vanished, replaced by a nervous energy that made her fidget with her hat. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. "We need to go home right now," Harold said, hanging up the phone. "Someone broke into our house." "Oh my God," Amanda gasped, pressing her hand to her chest in what seemed like an overly dramatic gesture. "That's terrible. Do they know who did it?" But I was watching Marcus, and the expression on his face wasn't shock or concern. It was guilt, pure, unmistakable guilt. "We should follow you home," Marcus said quietly. "Make sure you're okay." "No," I said firmly, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "We need to handle this ourselves first." As we walked quickly back to our car, my mind was racing. The timing of this felt too convenient. Amanda's sudden interest in gardening, the strange invitation, Marcus's distant behavior, and now our house being broken into while we were conveniently away from home. Harold started the car, and as we backed out of the driveway, I looked back at the house. Amanda and Marcus were standing in their driveway, watching us leave. Amanda had her hand on Marcus's arm, and they were talking intensely about something. "Florence," Harold said softly as we drove home, "that garden didn't look like something Amanda created herself." "I know," I whispered, my heart pounding with a dread I couldn't yet name. "Harold, I think we're about to learn something terrible about our son." The 25-minute drive home felt like hours, and with each mile, the sick feeling in my stomach grew stronger. What were we going to find when we got there? And more importantly, what role had our own family played in whatever had happened? The police cars in our driveway felt like a punch to the stomach. 3 patrol cars and an unmarked sedan sat where Harold and I usually parked our vehicles. Yellow tape stretched across our front porch, and I could see neighbors gathering on their lawns, whispering and pointing at our house. Officer Rodriguez was a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She met us at the curb, her notepad already in hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry you have to see your home like this," she said, her voice gentle but professional. "Before we go inside, I need to ask you some questions." My hands were shaking so badly that Harold had to guide me to sit on our front steps. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was being kept out of my own home by police tape while trying to learn what had happened inside. "Can you tell me who has keys to your house?" Officer Rodriguez asked. "Just us and our son Marcus," Harold replied. "We gave him a spare key about 3 years ago when we went on vacation to Florida, in case of emergencies." "And where is your son now?" "We just came from his house," I managed to say. He was there with his wife when you called us. Officer Rodriguez made a note, then looked up at us with an expression that made my stomach drop. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to be direct with you. The person who broke into your home knew exactly what they were looking for. They went straight to your bedroom, opened your jewelry box, and took specific items. They also knew where you keep important documents. This wasn't a random burglary. What are you saying? Harold's voice was tight. I'm saying this was someone familiar with your home and your routines, someone who knew you weren't going to be here this afternoon. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt dizzy, and Harold's arm around my shoulders was the only thing keeping me upright. Can we see what's missing? I whispered. Officer Rodriguez nodded and led us through our front door. The sight of our home made me gasp. Our bedroom had been torn apart, but in a methodical way. Drawers were opened and contents scattered, but nothing was broken or destroyed out of anger. This had been a search, not an act of vandalism. My jewelry box sat open on the dresser, its contents strewn across the surface. My grandmother's diamond ring was gone. So was the emerald necklace Harold had given me for our 25th anniversary. The pearl earrings my mother had left me were missing too. But strangest of all, some valuable pieces were left behind untouched. They only took specific items, Officer Rodriguez observed. Items that would be easy to sell quickly. Someone who knew what you owned and what would be most valuable. In Harold's study, our filing cabinet had been rifled through. The deed to our house was missing, along with some stock certificates and our insurance papers. But again, it was selective. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for. Officer Rodriguez, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, you think it was our son? She didn't answer directly. Mrs. Mitchell, we found fingerprints that we'll need to compare. We also found something else. She led us to the kitchen and pointed to our back door. Do you see anything unusual here? I looked closely and felt my heart break. There, on the doorframe, was a small scratch mark that looked fresh. But what made my breath catch was a tiny piece of blue fabric caught on the door latch. Blue fabric that looked exactly like the shirt Marcus had been wearing that afternoon. We'll need to test this fabric, Officer Rodriguez said. But Mrs. Mitchell, I have to ask you something difficult. Has your son been having financial problems? Harold and I looked at each other. Marcus had seemed stressed lately, and Amanda had been acting strange for months. She'd stopped working regularly at the boutique, claiming she was always sick, but we'd suspected she was lying. We don't know for certain, Harold said slowly. But now that you ask, there have been signs. What kind of signs? I thought back over the last few months. Marcus has been asking us about our investments lately. Casual questions about how much our house is worth, whether we have life insurance. Amanda has been buying expensive clothes and taking trips with her friends, but Marcus seemed worried about money when we went to dinner last month. He insisted on splitting the check, which isn't like him. Officer Rodriguez nodded grimly. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to tell you something else. We found evidence that whoever did this disabled your security system from the inside. The code was entered correctly, not bypassed. Only someone who knew your code could have done that. The room started spinning. Marcus was the only person other than Harold and me who knew our security code. We'd given it to him the same time we gave him the key, trusting him completely. There's more, Officer Rodriguez continued. Your neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, called us because she saw someone she recognized going into your house around 2:30 this afternoon. She was hesitant to say anything at first because she didn't want to cause family trouble. What did she see? Harold asked, though I could tell from his voice that he already knew. She saw your son's car in your driveway. She saw him and a woman go into the house through the front door. She said they were inside for about 45 minutes before leaving with what looked like bags or boxes. I felt like I was drowning. The son I had raised, the boy I had loved and supported through everything, had robbed us. While we were standing in his backyard, admiring a garden his wife had probably hired someone to install as an alibi, Marcus had been stealing from us. The woman, I said weakly. Did Mrs. Peterson get a good look at her? She said it was definitely the woman who lives there with your son. Blonde hair, about average height. She was carrying what looked like a jewelry box when they left. Amanda. My daughter-in-law had been part of this too. The two people who should have been protecting us and caring for us had conspired to rob us instead. Officer Rodriguez cleared her throat. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I have to ask, do you want to press charges? I know this is your son, and that makes it complicated, but this is a serious crime. Grand theft, breaking and entering, conspiracy. I couldn't speak. Harold squeezed my hand, and I could feel him trembling too. Can we have some time to think about it? Harold asked. Of course, but I should tell you, we've already gathered enough evidence to make arrests if you choose to move forward. The fingerprints, the fabric, the witness testimony, this case would be very straightforward. After the police left, Harold and I sat in our violated bedroom, surrounded by the mess our son had made of our private space. I picked up a photo of Marcus from when he graduated college. He was smiling in his cap and gown, his arm around me, looking so proud and happy. That was 8 years ago. When had he changed? When had we become targets instead of parents? Florence, Harold said softly, I keep thinking about that garden. What about it? Amanda called it her special project. She was so insistent that we come see it today, at exactly 2 o'clock. And Marcus barely spoke to us the whole time we were there. I understood what he was getting at. They planned this. The garden visit was to get us out of the house so they could rob us. And Amanda probably had that garden professionally installed just for this purpose, to give them an alibi and a reason to get us away from home. The betrayal felt bottomless. They hadn't just stolen our valuables. They had manipulated us, lied to us, and used our love for them as a weapon against us. They had looked us in the eyes, hugged us hello, and smiled while knowing exactly what they were doing to us. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Marcus. Mom just heard about the break-in from a neighbor. So sorry this happened to you. Amanda and I are here if you need anything. The audacity of it made me feel physically sick. He was already starting to play the concerned son, ready to comfort us over the trauma he had caused. I showed the message to Harold, who shook his head in disgust. What do we do now? I looked around our bedroom, at the chaos our son had created in his greed. Then I looked at that graduation photo again, at the boy who had once made me so proud. I don't know, I whispered. I honestly don't know if I can ever forgive him for this. But even as I said it, I knew the worst was still coming. We would have to confront Marcus and Amanda. We would have to look them in the eyes and tell them we knew what they had done. And then we would have to decide whether to treat them like the criminals they were or try to salvage what was left of our family. The hardest part was knowing that no matter what we chose, nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus as a little boy, running to me with scraped knees, trusting me to make everything better. Now I was the one who was hurt, and he was the one who had caused the pain. Harold and I spent most of the early morning hours sitting at our kitchen table, drinking coffee and trying to figure out what to say to our son. How do you confront someone you love about betraying you so completely? At 8 o'clock, I called Marcus. My hands were steady now, fueled by a cold anger that had replaced the shock. Mom? His voice sounded groggy, like we'd woken him up. How are you holding up after yesterday? I've been so worried about you. The concern in his voice made my stomach turn. Marcus, I need you and Amanda to come over this morning. We need to talk. Of course. Do you want us to bring anything? Coffee? Breakfast? Just yourselves. 10 o'clock. After I hung up, Harold looked at me with tired eyes. Are you ready for this? No, I said honestly, but it has to be done. They arrived exactly on time. Amanda was carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing a sympathetic expression that looked practiced in the mirror. Marcus had dark circles under his eyes and kept avoiding direct eye contact with us. Oh, Florence, Amanda said, rushing to hug me. I brought these to brighten up the house after what happened. I can't imagine how violated you must feel. I accepted the hug stiffly, feeling disgusted by her performance. Thank you, Amanda. Please, both of you sit down. We gathered in our living room, the same room where we'd celebrated Marcus's birthday just 2 months ago. The same room where Amanda had complained about our outdated furniture and suggested we modernize our style. Harold cleared his throat. We know it was you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Amanda's face went white, but she quickly recovered, putting on a confused expression. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice higher than usual. Marcus said nothing. He just stared at his hands, and I could see his jaw working like he was grinding his teeth. "The police found your fingerprints, Marcus," I said quietly. "They have a witness who saw your car here yesterday afternoon. They found a piece of your shirt caught on our back door." Amanda started to protest, but Marcus finally looked up, and the guilt in his eyes was unmistakable. "I can explain," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can you?" Harold's voice was sharp. "Can you explain why you stole your mother's jewelry while we were visiting you? Can you explain why you violated our home, our trust, our love for you?" Amanda jumped to her feet. "This is ridiculous. Marcus would never do something like that. You're accusing your own son based on what? Some neighbor who probably can't see straight?" "Sit down, Amanda," I said, my voice cold as ice. "The police have enough evidence to arrest both of you right now. The only reason they haven't is because we asked for time to handle this as a family first." She sat down heavily, her face cycling through emotions, anger, fear, calculation. I could almost see her trying to figure out how to talk her way out of this. Marcus finally spoke. "How much do you know?" "Everything," Harold said. "We know you disabled our security system. We know you took specific items that would be easy to sell. We know Amanda's garden party was just to get us out of the house. What we don't know is why." Marcus put his head in his hands. For a moment, he looked like the little boy I remembered, overwhelmed and scared. But then Amanda leaned over and whispered something sharp in his ear, and his expression hardened. "You don't understand the pressure we're under," he said, straightening up. "The bills, the debt, the expectations. Everyone assumes that because you two are comfortable, we should be too." "What debt?" I asked. "You have good jobs. You live within your means, or at least I thought you did." Amanda laughed bitterly. "Shows how much you know about your precious son's life. Do you have any idea how much money Marcus owes?" "Amanda, stop," Marcus said sharply, but she was beyond caring about his warnings now. "No, I'm tired of pretending," she snapped. "Your son has been gambling online for 2 years, poker, sports betting, day trading with money we don't have. He's lost over $60,000, and the people he owes money to aren't exactly patient." The room felt like it was spinning. Marcus, gambling? My responsible, careful son, who used to balance his checkbook to the penny? "Is that true?" Harold asked. Marcus nodded miserably. "It started small, just a few dollars here and there. But then I won some money, and I thought I could make back what we'd lost on other things. And then I lost more, and I needed to win it back, and it just kept getting worse." "So you decided to steal from us," I said flatly. "It wasn't supposed to be stealing." Marcus exploded, finally showing some emotion. "It's going to be mine someday anyway, right? The jewelry, the house, everything. I was just borrowing against my inheritance." The casual way he said it took my breath away. He had already written us off, already decided that our belongings were his to take whenever he needed them. "Your inheritance?" Harold's voice was dangerously quiet. "Marcus, you don't inherit things from people who are still alive. What you did was robbery." Amanda stood up again, her mask finally slipping completely. "Oh, please, you two act like you're victims, but you've been hoarding money while your own son struggles. Look at this house, all these nice things. You could have helped us instead of letting us suffer." "Helped you?" I stood up too, facing her. "We gave you $5,000 last Christmas when you said Marcus needed dental work. We paid for your vacation to Mexico when you said it was for your anniversary. We've helped with car repairs, house repairs, and medical bills. What we haven't done is enable a gambling addiction we didn't know about." "That wasn't enough," Amanda said coldly. "We needed real help, not your little charity handouts that came with lectures about being responsible." I stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time. This wasn't just about desperation or bad decisions. Amanda genuinely believed we owed them our money, our support, our things. She saw us as selfish for not giving them everything they wanted. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. Marcus and Amanda exchanged a look. Finally, Marcus answered, "A few weeks." Amanda suggested it after we got another threatening call from the people I owe money to. "It was Amanda's idea?" "It was a practical solution," Amanda said defiantly. "You two have more than you need, and we're about to lose everything. Those men Marcus owes money to aren't going to wait much longer, and they're not just going to break his legs. They're going to come after me too." So you thought you'd rob us instead, Harold said. We thought you'd understand, Marcus said weakly. If you knew how desperate we were, you'd want to help. By letting us think strangers had violated our home, I asked. By stealing my mother's jewelry? By taking documents that could put our financial security at risk? Marcus looked down again. We were going to tell you eventually, after we got things sorted out. No, you weren't, I said with certainty. You were going to let us think we'd been burglarized, let us feel violated and afraid, and you would have played the concerned son comforting us through the trauma you caused. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda was glaring at us like we were the ones who had done something wrong. Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. What happens now? Marcus finally asked. I looked at Harold, and we shared a moment of understanding. We had talked about this possibility during our sleepless night. Now you have a choice, Harold said. You can return everything you took, get help for your gambling problem, and we can try to work through this as a family. Or we can let the police handle it as the crime it was. And if we return everything? Amanda asked suspiciously. Then we don't press charges, I said. But there will be conditions. Marcus gets professional help for his gambling addiction. You both get jobs and start paying back the people you owe honestly, and you stay away from our house until we decide we can trust you again. Amanda's face twisted with anger. So, we're supposed to grovel and beg for forgiveness while you hold this over our heads forever? You're supposed to take responsibility for what you did, I said firmly. You're supposed to understand that actions have consequences. Marcus looked up at me with something that might have been hope. And if we do all that, we can still be a family? My heart broke a little at the vulnerability in his voice. Despite everything, he was still my son. I don't know, Marcus. That depends on whether you really want to change or if you just want to avoid going to jail. Amanda grabbed Marcus's arm. We don't have to listen to this. Let them call the police. We'll hire a lawyer and fight it. But Marcus shook his head. No, Amanda. We're done running from this. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I let it get this bad. The question isn't how you let it get this bad, I said softly. The question is what you're going to do about it now. As they left our house that morning, I watched my son walk away with his wife, and I wondered if I would ever really know him again. The boy I had raised wouldn't have done this, but the man he'd become was a stranger to me. And the hardest part was accepting that maybe he had been a stranger for longer than I wanted to admit. 3 days later, Marcus returned our belongings. He came alone, carrying a shopping bag that contained my grandmother's ring, the emerald necklace, the pearl earrings, and our important documents. Everything was there, but somehow having them back didn't make me feel any better. Amanda didn't want me to return these, he said quietly, standing awkwardly in our doorway. She said you were being dramatic and that this whole thing was blown out of proportion. I took the bag without inviting him inside. And what do you think, Marcus? He shifted uncomfortably. I think I messed up bad. I think I hurt you and Dad in a way that might not be fixable. You're right about that, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Have you found someone to help you with the gambling? I called a counselor yesterday. I have an appointment next week. He paused, looking like he wanted to say more. Mom, Amanda thinks I should just cut contact with you and Dad until this blows over. She says you're being vindictive and controlling. And what do you think about that? Marcus rubbed his face tiredly. I think my wife doesn't understand what family means, but I also think she's all I have right now, so I can't afford to lose her too. Those words hit me like a slap. You chose to rob us, Marcus. You chose to lie to us and manipulate us. We didn't abandon you. You pushed us away. I know, he said quietly, but Amanda's pregnant. The bag of stolen items nearly slipped from my hands. What? She found out yesterday, 2 months along. So even if I wanted to leave her over this, I can't. I won't abandon my child the way— He stopped himself, but I knew what he'd been about to say. The way your father abandoned you, I finished for him. Marcus's biological father had left when Marcus was 3 years old. Harold had adopted him when he was 7, but I knew the abandonment had left scars. Now those scars were being used against us. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I didn't mean to bring that up. Harold's been more of a father to me than my real dad ever was. But you're going to let Amanda use that against us anyway, I said, understanding dawning on me. She's going to make you choose between her and the baby, or us. Marcus didn't deny it. She says we need to focus on our own family now. That we can't keep depending on you and Dad to bail us out of our problems. Depending on us? Marcus, you robbed us. That's not depending on us for help. That's treating us like targets. I know, and I'm sorry, but Amanda says if we stay close to you, you'll always be trying to control us and judge us. She thinks we need space to figure things out on our own. I stared at my son, seeing Amanda's manipulation so clearly that it hurt. She was using his fear of abandonment and his guilt over the robbery to isolate him from us. And the pregnancy gave her the perfect weapon to make sure he wouldn't leave her. What about the gambling debts? I asked. We're working on it. Amanda got a loan from her sister to pay off the worst of them. The rest we'll handle gradually. A loan from Amanda's sister. I'd met her sister twice, and she was a waitress at a chain restaurant who lived paycheck to paycheck. There was no way she had the kind of money needed to pay off gambling debts, significant enough to motivate robbery. Marcus, I said carefully, where did Amanda's sister get the money for a loan that big? He looked away. I don't know all the details. Amanda handled it, but I could see in his eyes that he suspected the same thing I did. Amanda had found another way to get money, and it probably wasn't legal. The woman who had orchestrated robbing us wasn't going to suddenly develop a conscience about how she solved their financial problems. I should go, Marcus said. Amanda's waiting in the car. I looked past him and saw her sitting in the passenger seat, watching us through the windshield. Even from a distance, I could see the cold calculation in her expression. Marcus, I said as he started to turn away, when the baby comes, I want to be part of its life. He stopped, his shoulders sagging. I don't know if that's going to be possible, Mom. Amanda has strong feelings about boundaries and protecting our family from outside stress. I'm not outside stress. I'm your mother, and that baby will be my grandchild. I know, but Amanda's been through a lot, and she needs to feel safe and supported right now. Having conflict with you and Dad stresses her out, and that's not good for the baby. I wanted to scream. Amanda was pregnant for exactly 2 months, probably conceived right around the time they were planning to rob us, and now it was being used as a shield against any consequences for their actions. So we're supposed to pretend nothing happened, just let her control whether we can see our grandchild? I'm hoping that once the baby comes and Amanda sees how good you and Dad are with kids, she'll change her mind, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. After he left, I sat in my living room holding the bag of returned items, feeling more alone than I had in years. Harold found me there an hour later when he came home from the grocery store. They brought everything back, he asked, seeing the bag. Yes, and Amanda's pregnant. Harold sank into his chair, looking suddenly older. So that's her insurance policy. That's exactly what it is. She knows Marcus won't leave her while she's carrying his child, and she's using that to make sure he cuts us out of their lives. What did Marcus say about staying in touch? I told Harold about the conversation, watching his face grow more and more grim as I spoke. She's isolating him, Harold said when I finished. It's textbook manipulation. Make him feel like he has to choose between his family and his wife and child, knowing that most men in his position will choose the wife and child. The worst part is that I understand why he's making that choice, I admitted. If Amanda left him, she could take the baby and never let him see it. He's trapped. Over the next 2 weeks, we heard nothing from Marcus. No phone calls, no texts, no responses when we reached out to him. It was like he had vanished from our lives completely. But other people started reaching out to us, and not in the way we wanted. It started with Harold's sister calling from Oregon. I heard about the break-in, she said, but then I got a strange call from Amanda yesterday. What kind of strange call? Harold asked, putting the phone on speaker so I could hear. She said she was worried about you two, that you'd been acting paranoid and hostile lately, making accusations against Marcus and causing problems in their marriage. She said she was concerned about your mental health. My blood went cold. She said what? She made it sound like you were having some kind of breakdown and turning against your own son for no reason. She asked if I'd noticed any signs that you were declining mentally. Harold and I stared at each other. Amanda was already working to control the narrative, painting us as the problem and herself as the concerned daughter-in-law, trying to protect her husband from his unstable parents. Did you believe her? I asked. Of course not. But Florence? She was very convincing. If I didn't know you two as well as I do, I might have been concerned. The next call came from our neighbor 2 doors down. I ran into that nice daughter-in-law of yours at the grocery store, she said. She seemed so worried about you. She said you'd been having a hard time since the break-in and that you were struggling with some family issues. Then it was Harold's co-worker who mentioned that someone had called the office asking about Harold's behavior and whether he seemed stable. The caller claimed to be a concerned family member worried about signs of dementia. Amanda was systematically contacting everyone in our social circle, planting seeds of doubt about our mental state and reliability. She was building a foundation to discredit us if we ever tried to tell anyone what really happened. She's trying to make us look crazy, I told Harold, after the 5th concerned call from someone who'd heard we were going through a difficult time. It's more than that, Harold said grimly. She's making sure that if Marcus ever wants to come back to us, everyone will think we're the problem. She's poisoning our relationships, so we'll be isolated, and he'll have nowhere to turn except to her. The isolation was working. I found myself questioning every interaction, wondering what people really thought about me. When the mailman seemed a little less friendly than usual, I wondered if Amanda had talked to him too. When our longtime neighbors across the street stopped waving, I felt paranoid and unsure. Worst of all, I started doubting myself. Had I overreacted to the robbery? Was I being too harsh on Marcus? Was Amanda right that I was being vindictive and controlling? The doubt ate at me until I barely wanted to leave the house. Harold and I found ourselves living smaller and smaller lives, avoiding social situations where we might have to explain what had happened with Marcus or defend ourselves against Amanda's whisper campaign. 3 months after the robbery, I realized that Amanda had achieved exactly what she wanted. She had isolated us completely, made us afraid to reach out to anyone, and created a situation where Marcus would never hear a positive word about us from anyone in our community. We were losing our son, our future grandchild, and our place in our own social circle, and Amanda was doing it all while playing the role of the devoted wife, protecting her family from toxic in-laws. As I sat in my empty house, looking at the returned jewelry that no longer felt like treasures, but like reminders of betrayal, I realized that the robbery had been just the beginning. Amanda's real crime wasn't taking our things. It was taking our family, our reputation, and our peace of mind. And she was getting away with all of it. The turning point came 6 months after the robbery in the most unexpected way. I was at the grocery store trying to avoid the neighbors who now looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion when I bumped into Linda Brennan from the bank where Marcus worked. "Florence," she said, seeming genuinely happy to see me. "How are you holding up? I heard about all the troubles you've been having." My heart sank, expecting another conversation where I'd have to defend my sanity. But Linda's expression was different. There was concern there, but also something that looked like anger. "I'm managing," I said carefully. Linda glanced around, then moved closer to me. "Listen, I probably shouldn't say this, but I think you should know something about your daughter-in-law." I nearly dropped my shopping basket. "What about Amanda?" "She came into the bank last month trying to get information about your accounts. She claimed she was helping you manage your finances because you were having memory problems and couldn't handle things yourself anymore." The words hit me like ice water. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, of course. Banking regulations don't allow us to give account information to family members without proper documentation. But Florence, she was very insistent. She had a whole story about how worried she was about you and Harold, how Marcus was concerned but didn't want to hurt your feelings by taking over your finances." I felt dizzy. Amanda wasn't just isolating us socially. She was trying to get access to our money. "Did she say anything else?" Linda hesitated. "She asked specifically about your life insurance policies and whether you had any automatic transfers set up to Marcus. She also wanted to know if you'd made any recent changes to who had access to your accounts." "Recent changes?" "She seemed to think Marcus should have been added as a joint account holder by now, given your declining condition. When I told her he wasn't listed on any of your accounts, she seemed surprised and a little angry. I thanked Linda and hurried home, my mind racing. Amanda had expected to find that we'd already given Marcus access to our finances. When she discovered we hadn't, she'd tried to get the information herself by claiming we were mentally incompetent. When I told Harold what Linda had said, his face went pale. "She's planning something bigger than just robbing us once," he said. "What do you mean?" "Think about it, Florence. She's been telling everyone we're losing our minds. Now she's trying to get access to our bank accounts. I think she's building a case to have us declared incompetent so Marcus can take control of our finances legally." The idea was so monstrous that I almost couldn't process it. But as I thought about all of Amanda's actions over the past months, it made terrible sense. The Whisper campaign wasn't just about isolating us. It was about establishing a pattern of supposed mental decline that could be used in court. "We need to find out more about what she's been doing," I said. Harold nodded. "But we have to be careful. If she's really planning something like this, we can't let her know we're onto her." That evening, I called my old friend Margaret, who worked as a receptionist at the medical center where our family doctor practiced. Margaret and I had known each other for 20 years, and I trusted her completely. "Margaret, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me," I said. "Has anyone been calling about Harold and me, asking about our health or mental state?" There was a pause. "Oh, Florence, I was wondering when you'd find out about that." My heart sank. "So someone has been calling?" "Your daughter-in-law has called 3 times in the past 2 months. She said she was worried because you'd been forgetting things and acting confused. She wanted to know if Dr. Patterson had noticed any signs of dementia or Alzheimer's during your last visits." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, of course. Patient confidentiality. But Florence, she was very detailed about the things she claimed you'd been doing. Forgetting conversations, getting lost in familiar places, having trouble managing money. She made it sound like you were in the early stages of serious cognitive decline." I felt sick. Amanda was creating a fictional medical history for us, building evidence that could be used to have us declared incompetent. "Did she ask about anything specific?" "She wanted to know if you'd discussed updating your will or giving anyone power of attorney. She also asked if the doctor had recommended that family members take over your financial decisions." After I hung up, Harold and I sat in stunned silence. The scope of Amanda's manipulation was becoming clear, and it was far more sophisticated than we'd realized. "She's been planning this for months, maybe longer," Harold said. "The robbery wasn't desperation. It was just the beginning of a larger scheme. But why go to all this trouble? If she just wanted money, there would be easier ways." Harold looked at me grimly. "Because this way, she gets everything. If we're declared incompetent, Marcus becomes our guardian. He controls our finances, our medical decisions, everything. And since Amanda controls Marcus, she effectively gets control of our entire lives." The next day, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I drove to Amanda's sister's apartment, the one who had supposedly loaned them money to pay off Marcus's gambling debts. Cheryl answered the door looking surprised to see me. She was in her waitress uniform, obviously getting ready for work. "Mrs. Mitchell, is everything okay?" "I hope so, Cheryl. I wanted to thank you for helping Marcus and Amanda with their financial difficulties. That was very generous of you." Cheryl frowned. "I'm sorry, what?" "The loan you gave them to help with Marcus's debts. Amanda told us you were able to help them out." "Mrs. Mitchell, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I didn't give Amanda any loan. I couldn't afford to lend anyone more than maybe $50, and even that would be a stretch." My stomach dropped. "Are you sure?" "Marcus said Amanda got a loan from you to pay off some gambling debts." Cheryl shook her head emphatically. "Definitely not for me. And Mrs. Mitchell, I have to tell you something. Amanda asked me to lie about that if anyone ever asked. She said she'd pay me $500 to tell people I'd loaned her money, but I said no. I don't know where she got the money, but it wasn't from me." As I drove home, the pieces started falling into place. Amanda hadn't borrowed money from her sister. She'd gotten it somewhere else, and she'd tried to bribe Cheryl to provide a false alibi for where it came from. But where had the money really come from? That evening, I called Officer Rodriguez, the police officer who had handled our case. "I know this might sound strange," I said, "but have there been any other burglaries in our area recently? Anything that might be connected to our case?" "It's funny you should ask," she said. "We've had 3 similar break-ins in the past 4 months. Same pattern. Someone with inside knowledge, specific valuable items taken, no signs of forced entry. All elderly victims, all with family members who had access to their homes. Do you think they're connected?" "We're starting to think so. In each case, the victims initially suspected family members, but then backed off from pressing charges. And in 2 of the cases, the victims later said they thought they'd been mistaken and that their family members couldn't have been involved." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean they backed off?" "Well, in one case, the victim's daughter-in-law convinced her she was getting confused and had probably misplaced the items herself. In another case, the son convinced his father that the father had forgotten lending him the items. Both victims ended up saying they weren't sure a crime had even been committed." "Officer Rodriguez," I said slowly, "I think my daughter-in-law might be running some kind of scheme targeting elderly people. And I think my son might not be the only family member she's manipulated into helping her." There was a pause. "Mrs. Mitchell, that's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence?" I told her about the bank inquiry, the medical calls, the fake loan story, and Amanda's attempt to bribe her sister. When I finished, Officer Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "Mrs. Mitchell, I think you might be right. And I think you and your husband might be in more danger than you realize. If she's building a case to have you declared incompetent, she's not going to stop until she gets what she wants. What should we do? First, document everything, every conversation, every incident, every lie you catch her in. Second, make sure your legal affairs are in order and that you have people who can vouch for your mental competency. And third, be very careful. If she's as calculating as you think she is, she won't hesitate to escalate her tactics if she feels threatened." After I hung up, I looked at Harold, who had been listening to my side of the conversation. "She's not just trying to rob us," I said. "She's trying to destroy us completely." "But now we know what she's doing," Harold said, "and that means we can fight back." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Amanda had been operating in the shadows, counting on our isolation and confusion to hide her schemes. But now we knew the truth. The question was, what were we going to do about it? That night, as I lay in bed listening to Harold's steady breathing, I made a decision. Amanda had spent months systematically destroying our lives, turning our son against us, and planning to steal everything we'd worked for. She thought she was smarter than us, that we were just confused old people who couldn't see what she was doing. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 2 weeks after my conversation with Officer Rodriguez, Marcus called us for the first time in months. His voice sounded strained and exhausted. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. Can I come over?" "Of course," I said, my heart racing. "Is everything okay?" "No," he said quietly. "Nothing's okay. I'll be there in an hour." When Marcus arrived, he looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that made him look years older than his 32 years. "Marcus, what's wrong?" Harold asked as soon as he walked through the door. Marcus sat down heavily on our couch and put his head in his hands. Amanda left me. I felt a mixture of relief and concern. "What happened?" "She took the baby and moved in with some guy named Derek. Turns out she's been seeing him for months." Marcus looked up at us with hollow eyes. "She said I was pathetic and that she was tired of being dragged down by my problems." Harold and I exchanged glances. This was unexpected, but it might be the opening we needed. "Marcus," I said gently, "there are things about Amanda that you need to know." "Like what?" I told him about the bank inquiry, the medical center calls, the fake loan story, and everything else Officer Rodriguez and I had discovered. With each revelation, Marcus's face grew paler. "She was trying to have you declared incompetent?" he asked in a whisper. "We think so. And Marcus, we don't think you were her only victim." I showed him the printouts I'd gotten from Officer Rodriguez about the other burglaries. As Marcus read through the reports, I watched the full scope of Amanda's manipulation dawn on him. "She made me believe you were being unreasonable about the robbery," he said slowly. She said you were overreacting and trying to control us. She convinced me that cutting contact with you was the only way to protect our family. And all the while, she was planning to take everything we had, Harold said. Marcus was quiet for a long time, processing everything we'd told him. Finally, he looked up at us with tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry. I let her turn me against you. I chose her over my own parents. You were being manipulated by someone very skilled at it, I said. Amanda played on your fears and your guilt to control you. But I should have seen it. I should have known better. Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. She never loved me, did she? I was just useful to her. It broke my heart to see him so broken, but I knew he needed to understand the full truth. Marcus, I think she targeted you specifically because of us, because she knew you had access to our home and our trust. What do you mean? I think she researched you before you ever met. She knew you had parents with assets, that you'd had abandonment issues as a child, that you were vulnerable to someone who made you feel needed and important. Marcus stared at me. You think she planned all of this from the beginning? I think she's done this before with other families. The gambling addiction gave her the perfect crisis to justify robbing us. But I don't think the gambling was random either. I think she encouraged it. She did, Marcus said suddenly. She's the one who showed me those online poker sites. She said it would be fun to play together, just small amounts. When I started losing, she said I should bet bigger to win it back. The pieces were falling into place. Amanda had systematically destroyed Marcus's financial stability to create the desperation that would justify robbing us. She'd isolated him from us to prevent him from getting help or perspective. And she'd manipulated him into believing that we were the problem. Marcus, Harold said carefully, we want you to know that despite everything that's happened, you're still our son. But we need to know that you understand what really happened here. I understand, Marcus said. I understand that I was an idiot who let a manipulative woman destroy my relationship with the two people who actually loved me. You weren't an idiot, I said firmly. You were a victim. But now you have a choice about what happens next. Over the next few hours, Marcus told us everything about how Amanda had gradually convinced him that we were judgmental and controlling, about how she'd encouraged his gambling and then used his losses to justify increasingly desperate measures, about how she'd made him feel guilty for wanting to maintain a relationship with us. She recorded some of our conversations, Marcus said, the ones where I talked about feeling guilty about robbing you. She said it was to help me process my feelings, but now I think she was gathering evidence to use against me if I ever tried to leave her. Evidence for what? To show that I was unstable and couldn't be trusted with custody of the baby. She always said that if I ever left her, she'd make sure I never saw my child again. My heart ached for him. Amanda had trapped him completely, using his love for his child as a weapon to keep him under control. Marcus, I said, we need to tell you something else. Officer Rodriguez thinks Amanda might be part of a larger scheme. There have been other families targeted the same way. Other families? I showed him copies of the police reports. In each case, elderly parents were robbed by their own adult children. And in each case, there was a daughter-in-law or girlfriend involved who seemed to be the one orchestrating things. Marcus read through the reports, his expression growing more and more horrified. She's done this to other people? We think so. And Marcus, we think she's not done with us. Before she left you, did she say anything about us, about coming back for anything? Marcus nodded slowly. She said she wasn't finished with you two yet. She said you owed her for all the stress you'd caused and that she was going to make sure you paid for it. What did she mean by that? I don't know exactly, but she had copies of documents from your house, bank statements, insurance policies, the deed to your house. She said she was keeping them as insurance. Harold and I looked at each other. Amanda still had our personal information, and she was planning to use it somehow. Marcus, I said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Are you willing to help us stop her? What do you mean? I mean, are you willing to work with the police to expose what she's been doing? Not just to us, but to other families. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She has my son, he said finally. If I help you, you might disappear with him. And if you don't help us, she'll keep doing this to other families. Other people will lose their relationships with their children the way we almost lost ours. It was a terrible choice, and I could see Marcus struggling with it. Finally, he nodded. What do you need me to do? The next morning, the three of us met with Officer Rodriguez and a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit. Marcus told them everything he knew about Amanda's schemes, her methods, and her current whereabouts. We've been tracking a pattern of elder abuse cases across 3 counties, the detective said. The suspect profile matches your daughter-in-law exactly. If your son is willing to cooperate, we might be able to build a case that stops her permanently. What about my baby? Marcus asked. We'll work with family court to make sure your parental rights are protected, the detective said. But I have to warn you, this could take months to resolve. Marcus looked at me and Harold, then back at the detective. Do it. The investigation moved quickly once Marcus started cooperating. Within a week, the police had tracked down 2 other men in similar situations to Marcus, men who had been manipulated into robbing their own families by women who matched Amanda's description. It turned out that Amanda's real name was Angela Morrison, and she had a criminal record going back 10 years. She specialized in targeting men with family assets, manipulating them into providing access to their relatives' homes and finances. The other men she'd manipulated were relieved to finally understand what had happened to them. Like Marcus, they'd been isolated from their families and convinced that their parents were the problem. Like Marcus, they'd lost relationships that had taken years to rebuild. Amanda was arrested 3 weeks later at Derek's apartment. She was charged with elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, and a dozen other crimes across multiple counties. Derek, it turned out, was her partner in the scheme, helping her identify targets and providing emotional support while she worked on manipulating her victims. The baby was placed in temporary custody while the court sorted out the situation. Marcus was devastated, but he was also determined to prove he could be a good father without Amanda's influence. I want him to know his grandparents, Marcus told us the day after Amanda's arrest. I want him to grow up in a real family, not as a tool in someone's manipulation. The legal process was long and complicated, but 6 months later, Marcus was awarded primary custody of his son. Amanda was sentenced to 8 years in prison, and Derek got 5 years as an accomplice. On a sunny Saturday morning in May, 1 year after the garden party that had started this nightmare, I sat in my backyard, holding my grandson for the first time. He was beautiful, with Marcus's dark hair and curious eyes that reminded me of Marcus as a baby. Marcus sat beside me, watching his son discover the texture of grass with tiny fingers. I can't believe I almost lost you two, he said quietly. But you didn't, Harold said from his chair nearby. That's what matters. Marcus looked at me. How do you forgive someone for what I did? How do you trust someone who chose a criminal over his own parents? Because you weren't choosing a criminal, I said. You were choosing what you thought was best for your child. Amanda made sure you couldn't see any other option. But I should have known better. Maybe. But Marcus, everyone is vulnerable to manipulation under the right circumstances. Amanda was very good at finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the baby explore this new world of sunlight and fresh air. The garden around us was nothing like the elaborate staged display Amanda had created for her alibi. This was a real garden with plants Harold and I had chosen and tended ourselves over years of patience and care. I want to plant something, Marcus said suddenly. Something for him. Something that will grow as he grows. Harold smiled. I think that's a perfect idea. As I watched my son and grandson together, I realized that Amanda's greatest failure wasn't getting caught or going to prison. Her greatest failure was believing that the love between family members could be permanently destroyed by manipulation and lies. She had underestimated the power of truth, the strength of genuine love, and the resilience of people who refused to give up on each other. The garden she had used to deceive us was gone, but the family she had tried to destroy was stronger than ever, and in the end, that was the only victory that really mattered.